Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and of course DK in the background, making sure we are up to date with our facts. We don't say anything out of the side of our mouths and otherwise. We're really excited to come to you live and talk to you about our Baltimore Ravens. Some pressers today, a lot of news. Eric DeCosta, of course, got up in front of the microphone, and our coach, John Harbaugh, and we're here to talk about that, break down what our thoughts were, do a little bit of reading between the lines based on our Ravens experience in these scenarios and otherwise. So with all that being said, before we get into it, as always, we got to keep the lights on here, ladies and gentlemen. Talk about our awesome sponsor, BetOnline. Glenn, what's going on with BetOnline these days, man? Football's dying down, but there's a lot more.
Yeah, certainly picking things up in other sports. And BetOnline will always and continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned bettor, a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA, college basketball to the NHL and UFC. Ovechkin is just, games away, it feels like, from passing Gretzky for the all-time goal lead list there. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And Jimbo, it was nice hearing from the guys today, give their take finally on some pretty hot topics. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the chat there, but it was nice to see them nonetheless, and also nice just to know, the combine's right around the corner. Combine is here, and while it's not the most, it's not football. I think we can all agree there. It does start to help shape what this draft is going to look like, and if there's any Monday, what do they call Monday morning GMs out there? I think they're about to be in heaven starting this Thursday. I think 3:00, I believe it is, when the first on-field drills will start. Right now, doing the interviews and the medical stuff behind the scenes, which of course is important, but I'm interested to see these guys run, see what they got, albeit in gym shorts, Jimbo.
Yeah, now let me ask you this, Glenn. Just curious about your take on the combine. Are too many guys big time in the combine these days? Just like strategically not going through the motion. Like I totally understood strategically, why Lamar didn't run the 40. Because he had nothing to prove. But like until you've reached that level of success,
right?
Like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out and say it, and people might hate me for this. I'm not taking Shedeur Sanders.
No, just because he won't.
No, I'm not taking Shedeur Sanders because I don't think he's NFL talent.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different. Now, look, we're going to get into all the prospects, but as far as your first question about guys skipping events and stuff, like you said about Lamar, he had perfectly good reason to not run the 40 with the people, everybody trying to switch his position, make him into a punt returner and a receiver. I don't like any of that. But unless you have a reason like that, where it's pretty clear if you do run that it's going to lead to other things, or if you, and whatever the drill is. But other than that, there's really, I want guys competing. I want guys going out there and beating the guy next to him, going, I don't care if I have to or not. I'm going to go out here and show these guys what I got. But I don't know.
I don't want the NFL to become the NBA is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I don't like, the NBA
you know what I'm saying?
Absolute disaster right now. Look. And part of it is because the players have all the power, it looks like.
Right now. And I'm fine with the players deserve what they deserve, but you're right. I mean, anyway, that's a whole different conversation. And I sound really old by saying this, but yeah, I'm not a Shedeur Sanders guy.
I like Shedeur, but I haven't done a ton of, but I watched them play at Colorado because you kind of had to.
Yeah.
Talent and all that. I was watching a lot of times for Hunter. Because
Travis Hunter, different story. Dude's a dog.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean,
he's incredible.
Be the number one corner and number two receiver on most lists.
It's ridiculous.
It's pretty special to watch a two-way player do that. But I did like what I saw this year. But hey, look, we're not here.
There's no way the Ravens are drafting either of them.
No. They'll be both gone in the top 3, probably top 5 at worst.
Yeah, top 5. I would probably say. Yeah.
I think Travis Hunter is the first non-quarterback taken, and then but we'll see. We got time to get into that. What we're here to talk about is, of course, the GM and head coach of this football team talking today about some topics that, needed to be asked about. And they didn't give us a ton on a lot of this stuff, but they gave us a little something. Let's start with something that's not as controversial, and that is the questions surrounding Ronnie Stanley, the most important free agent on this football team, certainly on the offensive side of the ball. I think there's no doubt. I got to say, I was very happy to hear the optimism around Ronnie Stanley from Eric DeCosta. Eric spoke glowingly about him, talked about them getting deals done in the past and how that leads him to have more confidence that this deal will get done. Spoke about his agent, praised his agent as well, and said he expects to speak with Ronnie's agent during the combine this week. So, man, that was nice to hear. Now, he did point out the limited cap space, which is a very real thing. And he was asked about Roger Rosengard in an event of, Stanley's not able to be re-signed. Is there a potential that Roger could switch to the left? He said there's the potential, but didn't sound like that was the route they're going to take. Seemed very confident that Ronnie will be back in Baltimore.
Yeah, no, I was happy to hear that because if you remember, we had this conversation before. Am I on the right mic, by the way?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, cool. If you remember, we had this conversation before, Glenn. We were talking about that room. I went into that conversation thinking, we're going to get this deal done. Nice cut, by the way. We're going to get this nice cup.
Dude, I learned from the great one about these Mason jars.
Dude.
You know what I'm saying?
Got to, dude.
Yeah, man. Utility. A lot of utility with these things.
That's right. I mean? I'm all about utility, Glenn.
That's right. I forgot to tell you I'm on the Mason jar tip.
Dude, let's go.
But hold up, dude. Eddie, hold on. No floaties.
Good. I'm glad to hear it, dude. I'm so glad to hear it. But no, I want to say when we went in that conversation, I felt very confident that the deal gets done, right? That Ronnie stays here. Makes sense for him, makes sense for us. But then we started to hear things from outside sources, ESPN and otherwise, that had Ronnie ranked so high and they were kind of split on what will end up happening because he's priced himself out of Baltimore because maybe Baltimore is ready to move on and get a guy in the draft. But I was glad to hear what we heard because I think it makes most sense. I said it in our last show. I don't think that I don't think that there's a prospect that I feel better about, even the number one left tackle in the draft for just next season. I'm not talking about for the next 10 years, but if we're right on the precipice, I want a vet that we know that our team feels comfortable with on that side, protecting Lamar Jackson. And so I was really glad to hear that, they doubled down on that for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you said it perfectly. Even if they got the number one rated left tackle in the draft class, I don't think you can expect them to be Ronnie Stanley's level.
Right.
Already he is, especially coming off of a healthy season last year. Yeah, I think they got to get him done. Sounds like coach is just as optimistic that the deal will get done and emphasized, keeping him, even if there is going to be some cap constraints along with it. Let's see here. And then did talk about, just to stay on the same line, stay on the same topic with the offensive line. John also was asked about the importance of the offensive line and what, the focus will be as far as the combine and the draft. And he didn't reveal any like specific guys, and he did talk about, the offensive line being a very, an important position, a position they're looking at with great detail coming up in the draft. So they also had a chance to praise Andrew Voorhees and give him credit where it was due. But do you very much so look at like, what probability would you give it if I had to put you on the spot here, Jimbo? Probability that Voorhees or Falele will be the starters at guard next year, or both. I guess, what's the chances both? And then what's the chances that either one might be still there?
Like percentage.
Yeah. Both of them.
Put me on the spot like this.
What's the percent both are back?
Well, I got to say this, Glenn. I think that so I think it was pretty damning that Voorhees didn't get his job back. I just do. Yeah. I think if he's the guy, he gets back in that role, and it's so you couldn't beat a guy out that was by all metrics not playing good football. And
John said he was playing good. That's why Pat McCary kept his job. John said he was
well, that means that Voorhees was playing that much worse. Because the better guy is going to play. John doesn't I mean, at least I don't think that John cares. John doesn't care. So I give it a 50-50 that both of them are back. I'm going to split it right down the middle.
You think there's a 50% chance that both are the starting guards next year?
Okay, never mind. 30% chance.
Okay. All right. 30%
chance.
And then what about just one of them is back? DK,
70% chance.
I forgot the L in the NFL.
70% chance.
Dang. So you don't think there's you look at it, there's only a 30% likelihood that we get 2 new guards next year.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm for it.
Jax is with you. He thinks one of them starts.
Yeah, I think it's Falele. I think Falele just keeps his job.
Pro bowler.
Yeah, maybe. But look, if we get at the same time, we talked about this as well, right, Glenn? Like, there's so much value at the bottom end of these rounds at guard. Go get the best 2 guards in the draft and call it a success.
Yeah.
You know,
that's kind of where I'm leaning. I mean, there's not, unless you're Quentin Nelson, you're not going to be picking. You're not going to get picked in the top 10 if you're a guard. So there's a very high likelihood the Ravens could get maybe the first or second best guard in the entire draft, or both. You never really know when it comes to guards. They could. There's the potential. So I see what you're saying there.
What's your take on that though?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one, man, because I don't want either one of them back. I want them to have I want the Ravens to have a fresh start at both guard positions. But I understand that's a tall task. It's not something that, like, there's going to have to be a bit of luck that would play into replacing both of them, and replacing them with guys that are better. Of course, you don't want you don't want to make really even a lateral move. Certainly don't want to downgrade. But I would say if you want upgrades, you kind of got to get lucky to a certain degree with the draft falling your way, and then of course nailing it and getting the right guys. But also, it's going to be a challenge to get both those guys replaced. So I'm going to say it's 50-50 that one of them comes back. But I think I'm talking 10%, if that, chance that both of them will be starters again this year.
10%, huh?
There's no way. There's no way. Not when you see the blueprint to beating the Kansas City Chiefs, and not just beating them, but absolutely trouncing them and embarrassing them.
Yeah.
It's a good offensive and a good defensive line.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't go back in there with these 2 mediocre guards. That mediocre, I think, was a compliment at times to both of these guys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But he is young. DK says Voorhees is young. He is young. And look, he can compete. I'm just saying, if you draft a guy, best guy wins. Compete. You know,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Glenn, you know I've been beating this drum for a while, right?
Keep throwing picks at it.
Yeah, last year was not enough as far as draft capital at the offensive line.
But they nailed it though with the one they took, didn't they?
They did.
Holy.
They absolutely
did. They got one. But yeah, I mean, and I guess there's what's the chances that Falele takes another step and becomes even isn't there just limitations by his size, athleticism, mobility? Like, even if his technique improves, there's limitations, how good he could possibly be. And I want a guy with a higher ceiling.
I guess. My only thing that I would say is I guess I would say that there's got to be as many strengths at being positive pieces to being that massive at guard as there may be limitations. So any limitations you may have, he's got to get, I think what he's got to get better at is using what he has, using the size that he has, playing with more of a physical edge. We kind of saw that in moments where he just absolutely demolished guys, but doing so more consistently. Right. So I think there's a chance because I think he's an athlete. I think as an athlete, he can continue to improve. This is his first year playing the position, man.
Yeah, he can't deny the man is an athlete at that size.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that Falele is one that's back, and I think we get a monster at left guard. But I like what you're saying. Throw picks at it, dude. Throw picks at it and let them all compete. We have no bona fide guys. What do you know what I mean? Other than Linderbaum and Rosengarten. I mean, obviously, if Ronnie comes back.
Well, hold on. Now, you can't say we have no bona fide guys and then name a bunch of bona fide guys.
At those positions, we have nobody. Right. That's what I was really mentioning, right? At guard, nobody's like, this is our guy, like a Linderbaum or like a Rosengarten, that we're going to plant our flag here and say,
Right.
this is our guy. You know what I'm saying?
True. Yeah. Smitty, maybe we could see some trade action. Smitty's asking if the Ravens might get a little active in the trade room, go back to 32 like they did the year when they drafted Lamar. Maybe, but usually that's a deal. That's a deal you go after quarterback. I guess it could be a quarterback, could be an edge, could be any of those expensive positions where you want that 5th-year option. But also quickly, free agency, asked about that. And look, the same approach remains in Baltimore. They will not break the bank. They will look for cap, savings. He pointed out, look how many guys we've signed with, $1 to $3 million contracts, and look how they've turned out. We see it year after year. So if you're hoping that the Ravens go out and grab somebody in the first day or two of free agency, I don't think that's going to happen. They don't have a ton of savings. They could create more space. He called it couch cushion cap savings is what Eric DeCosta called it. Because he says he looks for 50,000 here, 70,000 there. Anything they can get to continue to add to the pot, they will find. But when you got a bunch of good players and homegrown talent, there's not a lot of left over to bring guys that, were good elsewhere.
And look, Glenn, I think at the end of the day, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because I think that builds a few things. One, the most sustainable. I think it's the most sustainable model. I think if you look at most successful teams, their guys are the guys they drafted. Right? Like I know everyone talks about the Rams and how the Rams that one year they brought in Stafford but that's all they really did, right? Like what I mean, who's the Triple Crown winner? Oh my gosh, he's up for trade now. Cup was a draft pick. Yeah. Arnold was a draft pick. And I guess they got Von Miller.
They got Ramsey.
They got Ramsey. They got Von Miller. They got some other guys.
They did go all in on the trades.
They did, but
remember they traded all their draft capital. They had nothing.
And where are they now? I mean, I guess they made the playoffs last year. I mean,
yeah. They're doing pretty good, but they're talking about trading Stafford away. So starting over at quarterback.
I just don't know if that's the most sustainable models, I guess what I would say.
Well, the only reason that theirs was sustained, the only reason that they didn't get destroyed is because they won. If they didn't win that Super Bowl, it would have been the worst. I mean, obviously, but they won, so they're smart, and it worked.
Yeah.
So,
now, I also want to point out something else that Eric said. Not only just paying our homegrown guys, but being strong up the middle of the field. That's something that you always talk about as well, right? And he named all of our guys up the middle of the field. And I wanted to bring up something that the GM over at Cincinnati said that they're preparing to make oh my gosh, Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in the league.
Well,
it gets me a little excited.
Yeah, they're going to have to because that dude is just that good.
Well, and good because that means just all their other positions are going to get that much worse.
Well, I mean, I don't know how they're gonna possibly
between him and Joe
and get T there. They're talking about they want T there. Well, how the hell are you going to pay T Higgins with all that? I mean, who was it I was listening to? It's a great corner in the NFL right now, and he was talking about Jamar, and he was like, the dude is a running back with the ball in his hands. Look at all the ways they get this guy the ball. He can kill you any which way you want it. He's gonna get you. And yeah, we feel that every time we play him, that son of a gun. But yeah, to your point, you can't pay everyone. And eventually you might have to break up this little trio here. I love to hear it. Did you hear, by the way, Ben Johnson now with Chicago, but has been with Detroit the last couple years. And since he's been in the league, really, it's a coordinator. Did you hear his comments about mobility finally having a quarterback? He's like, hey, I got a mobile quarterback. Never really had that before. I get excited. I used to be on the other end of it, and that stunk. But now I got golf's like, what? Here I go out there. I put out a great season, and I'm catching strays at the combine from this guy who I got a job.
All right. It's crazy to me. Goff will end up being a better number one pick than Caleb Williams.
I mean, Goff's got a pretty nice career put together now. If you really,
Caleb Williams, isn't it? Good luck, dude. Hit your wagon to that horse. Good luck.
If you end up calling this, is he the next? Is it Shedeur next?
Oh,
you done called it. You done called it.
Never played without Daddy. What are we talking about here, dude? What's gonna happen when he gets in the league and it's not? Nah.
Here we go.
No, Shador is not legitimate, dude.
Oh,
I
man.
don't
Hey,
believe it.
guys,
I don't buy any of
look,
it.
I'm a Shador guy, but I was also a Baker guy because I thought Baker was.
Now, look,
Hey,
Baker's
look,
made something of his career, but he had to resurrect his whole persona, his whole personality. All of that had to be renewed.
he had to reevaluate some things. And you called
Yeah.
it day one on who else did you call? Man, you called a bunch of them. We got to start a list here, DK, of all the ones he's called. Who was the running back you said stunk up the joint?
Oh, Najee.
That's right. Now you said Najee from the start. Now he's had a pretty decent career, but he wasn't what everybody, first round pick, what they were hoping would be.
I would like to know this though, Glenn. Imagine this math. If you took the amount of touches, catches, or carries that Najee has had, say that number, whatever it is, what is the total output, and then put it next to Derrick Henry, or put it next to anybody that he's drafted around, right? Like
put it next to Gus.
Right.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying?
He's a hard running guy. He's a big bruiser, and they haven't had the best team around him. In fairness to him, that offensive line's been in shambles, and they haven't had a quarterback since Ben.
Yeah, well, sorry.
In fairness.
Sorry, not sorry.
All right. Well, let's move on, and let's, I guess, get into one of the bits of drama here in Baltimore.
Yeah, have to.
Let's talk about Justin Tucker first. Eric DeCosta was asked about it. He spoke and addressed the seriousness, kept emphasizing the seriousness of the allegations, and also the seriousness and concern surrounding how many accusers there are. Up to this point, 16 reported accusers. He's talked about how he feels fortunate that the NFL is doing an investigation, that the team will wait for the results of that investigation. Said that the NFL is in Baltimore now, conducting interviews and pursuing the truth in this matter. But did say he spoke with Tucker privately. He kept those conversations private, as well as John Harbaugh echoed those, said he did speak with him, said they did find out shortly before the story broke. The Banner did let them know that the story was oncoming. But neither one really spoke neither one really addressed their feelings on what happened. They just said they're aware. They said it's very serious. We're going to wait for the results of the NFL investigation. Jimmy, what were you able to get? Like, did you get anything out of their answer?
Yeah, not much other than I think that it's I did get a little validation in that Eric said what we said, and maybe Eric's getting slammed for what we said, but like legitimately every situation is different. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's serious and terrible allegations, and just like you said, the volume of them is incredibly alarming, right? Like outside of the content, but also the volume of incidents, right? Like that's a problem. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I got an inkling on whether or not, I think you feel like you got more about what they're going to do with Justin Tucker. To me, I got the sense that they're going to slow play this thing and see if there's a way they can finagle this guy back on the team without going through moral suicide. That's what I felt walking away from it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess the only possibility, I'm trying to think of a possibility how this could ever be something that they do and not get absolutely destroyed in the court of public opinion, which I don't think we can just act like that's not a big deal, because I think their actions in the past have shown that, I mean, anybody's right. It's a big deal. So how could they do this? The only way is if they find out that it's complete, that all of it is complete and total made up BS, some sort of orchestrated personal attack. That would be the only way, because if there's any shred of truth to this, then there's no way they could stick by the guy's side. Like they would have to be totally convinced without a shadow of a doubt that none of this stuff happened, not to one of them, much less 16 of them. That would be the only way. And everything I heard and everything I've heard since this story's broke just tells me that they're waiting to have all their ducks in a row to make sure they can get out of this without having to owe Justin any money. That's what I'm gathering from it. I don't think there's any way, unless, like I said, happened where they got without a shadow of a doubt proof that nothing happened. That'd be the only way they could stick by this guy.
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree with you. However, Glenn, if the league comes down and doesn't suspend him and says there is zero evidence other than claims, like, I don't know how. I know the league has reached, but once again, like, the closest case we have to this is Deshaun Watson, who there was clear evidence, right? Like, of interactions and conversations and situations being had. I just don't know how much of that they're going to be able to substantiate because it's so old. So can the league suspend him on just she said, he said? I mean, they can, right? Like DK saying they can. They can. They have the power to do that, but will they? I guess is my question. And so if the league comes back and says, we don't have enough here to justify.
I don't think they can just have not enough. They have to have proof and definitive evidence that he did not do anything. I don't think so. I think they have to. So
is the lack of proof? Now. Is the lack of evidence damning him not enough?
Yeah, because I think they have at this point. It's not fair. I mean, it's always supposed to be guilty until proven.
Sure.
I think at this point, he's guilty until proven innocent. Like, I think that's how it is. I think they have to find definitive proof that none of it's true. And I don't think a lack of evidence is enough to just sweep it under the rug.
That's interesting to me. I know the burden of proof, of course, is not the same as the court of law, right?
Right.
If the NFL was the judge for O.J. Simpson, the situation would have turned out much differently, right? Yeah. Because the burden of proof is much lower. That being said, there still has to be a line. Right. And I'm not sitting here defending Justin. I'm just saying that the case is what it is. And so there is a possibility, I believe, that they come back. And I'm just saying, based on the time that it's happened a long time ago, they come back and say, we don't have anything here. Like, we just don't have information. We don't have any evidence. Right. And I think it's reasonable to think, I understand your point too. They could, based on track record, they could just easily suspend him. But I guess what I'm saying is that there's also not as much of a likelihood, but there's a likelihood. There's not a likelihood. There's a possibility that they couldn't. And if they don't, are you okay with the Ravens keeping him?
The only way I'd be okay with it is if we find out it's all BS. That's the only way.
Right. Well, if he's not suspended and there's no substantive evidence, you know what I'm saying? That's why.
Because I don't also want to be just a person, any accusation, but 16, bro.
No, you're right.
So
100%.
many.
You are 1,000% right. Like, the chances are not good against Justin Tucker, but I am also cognizant of the fact that this was a long time ago. The only person I feel like that could have produced evidence said he has none. The owner of the place that said the lady accused of writing reports, he doesn't have any of kicking Justin Tucker out. He said he was never kicked out. Like, how many other situations are there where there could be records of this happening? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be a tough one. And
how deep does it go? Like, is this a scorned lover? You know what I mean? Like, you can go wild with this thing because there's no evidence that we know of other than people's word. I'm not minimizing what they're saying, but obviously that's not those are just accusations. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just, all I'm saying is that I think the Ravens are slow playing this because we don't know what's going to happen here.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think they're just looking for a way out and a way out of that.
I also wouldn't be surprised by that either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Like, and you bring up a good point. You mentioned this already. You talked about this. Maybe the finances could change. I don't know. Maybe that whole thing changes if he does get suspended and otherwise, right? Maybe that's what they're waiting for. So
he did look it up just quickly. In 2025, if he has a post June 1 release, he'll they'll have a $4.2 million in savings, and they'll have 2.8 in dead cap space this season, 4.6 in dead cap next season. So they will get some cap relief this year, have some dead money, even if they're not able to get out from under it. But I think that's what they're going for, to get out from underneath of all financial responsibilities. But they also did go on to say that Randy Brown, the kicking instructor here in Baltimore, is just as every year. Now, they pointed that out too, that he is doing, his job of doing a deep dive into all the kicking prospects in this year's draft. But something tells me that they're looking a little more intently this year. Maybe I'm crazy, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, true.
Before we make any more judgment. But all right, let's get into.
Well, let's talk. We got to talk about Andrews, right?
Yeah, that's where. Yeah. Let's talk.
Is that exactly where you're going to go? My bad.
It's all good.
My bad. Yeah, because I think we had differing opinions, and I think it was funny because I could have read the room wrong. We kind of pre-gamed this, and I felt like Glenn and DK and we were kind of on this spectrum, right? Like none of us really agreed wholeheartedly on our read about Mark Andrews. And Glenn brought up a good point, that kind of I think bolstered a little bit what I was saying. But Eric DeCosta, when asked about Mark Andrews, waxed poetically, right? Like he went on and on. He got up there like Hamlet and gave his monologue, right? About Mark Andrews and how great of a guy he is and how much attention detail he puts in and this, that, and the other, how much he's a huge fan of Mark, etc. That said, to me, it sounded like something you write in the back of someone's yearbook when it's the end of an era.
Okay.
Right. I believe that there is a solid chance that the Ravens, I think they saved like $11 million if they cut him.
Is a $16.9 million cap hit this year.
I think there is a solid chance that they move on from and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the last year of his deal.
I think he might. I don't know.
Let me double check that. I thought the last time we checked that was the case.
I think you're right, but he may have some. I don't know if he has any void years. I don't know if we did that with Mark's deal.
But either way, I think that there's only one of two scenarios here. I think that we play it out this year.
Okay.
Take the cap hit because we're not paying a lot to wide receiver room, just like we talked about. And then likely's the guy after that, or Mark is gone. Is this the last year of his contract to get? Yeah. So to me, that's what it is. I don't think an extension happens.
But when you say, no extension.
No extension. I think we play it out. We take the hit this year.
Okay.
And because and then next year we say, thank you so much, Mark. You'll be in our ring of honor. Likely here's your money.
Okay.
That's what I see happening.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess here are the options, folks. Right? They could cut them right now, and get their $11 million in savings and have their $4 million in dead cap, and prepare for free agency. They could try and extend him, maybe add a couple years to his deal, reduce his salary this year, convert that into a signing bonus, and reduce it a bit by a lot, like down to, I think the numbers I saw, they could get it down to like $7 million is his cap number compared to 16.9. But what about if they traded him? Do you think there's a chance to get a trade partner, recover some draft capital? That way somebody else is paying him this monster salary. I think you would still, isn't there still like, are you still on the hook for like bonus or does I guess we'd have to find out if the team incurs all of the financial responsibilities if you trade him. Or if there's any, effects from that on our end. But what do you think about getting maybe a 4th rounder? Adam 78 says a 3rd rounder. What do you think about that?
That's rich. I mean, Joe Flacco, we got a 5th, right?
Well, Joe Flacco, a little different. I mean, tight ends, everyone the problem is everyone seemingly has a great tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like every good team has a freaking monster tight end. But what do you think of? So you think that's too rich? You think a 3rd or a 4th?
I think so, because I think the Broncos thought Joe had a lot left to play, to give, right? I don't think that they thought, well, we're gonna get what we can get out of him. I think they were expecting more. I think that's rich. So I just don't see it.
But trade. They had to get rid of that. Was a little different with the bargaining.
That's true. I mean, I guess they had to. That's true. But, and look, if the right deal comes knocking, the Ravens aren't going to say no. Good point that Jax brings up. The Chargers.
And this is a guy who led tight ends in touchdowns. This isn't Joe Flacco.
Right. And
it's that's not like Joe led the league in touchdowns.
Right. But that's why I think they hold this year, because this is Lamar's guy, his most reliable pass catcher he's had in his entire career. So I'm not diminishing Mark's talent. I think that's why I think they hold on to him, because he's that good. Yeah. And then next year, you have to do it because of numbers thing. You want to pay Likely. You want to keep Likely. He's the younger guy. He's the next man up. It's more of that natural progression. I don't see a trade this year because I don't think a team's going to come with something that's going to, blow Eric DeCosta's proverbial hair back because he doesn't have even real hair and make it worth the juice worth the squeeze. I don't see a trade. I also don't see a cut because once again, he's still that good. But I do see that this is the end of the line. I don't think extension conversations are being had.
One more year. One more last ride, as Ray called it. Well, I think the reason some fans are hoping he's out of here is what you see on the screen right here. Mm-hmm. As a regular season performer, he's one of the very best. Incredibly low drop rate, 4%, drop percentage compared to when he gets in the playoffs. That number jumps incredibly to 20%. 1 out of every 5 balls on target he has dropped, and that includes, of course, the 2-point conversion attempt that ended the Ravens season. And so I see this and I get why people. So $11.9 million in savings. He's not been a very good playoff performer. Let's use that money and put it elsewhere. And so I understand that you want to go into free agency potentially with a little more money in your pockets, or just keep that money for when the potential is for contract extensions for guys on the team like Linderbaum and Hamilton. But at the same time, Jimbo, I'm with you. Like, if we lose, let's say they move on from him. Okay, we got Zay, we got Bateman, we got Likely. Okay, what happens if one of those guys gets a sprained ankle and is going to miss 5 weeks? Now you're down to 2 studs that you would consider. And what if one of them's dealing with a knee injury, so he's not really 100%, so he's not necessarily as good as he would be if he was, and he's not as effective? Oh, man, I don't know about that. I want as many weapons and good players. And I get he's had a tough go of it in the playoffs, albeit a very small sample size comparatively to his regular season numbers. But I'm not buying that this is the end of Mark Andrews. I don't want to be – I don't want it to be the last of Mark Andrews. I don't want the last time we see him in a Ravens uniform, him dropping a pass, him having a fumble knocked out of his hands. I think he's got a lot more good football left in him, and I think the ending to his Ravens story will be a lot brighter than a drop 2-point conversion. I think he sticks around. And Deep Mahmood says, if they draft tight end, I like Gunnar Helm from Texas. 2 Gunners, 2 Gunnar H's in Baltimore sports would be cool. Helm is also a high floor prospect. Yeah. Hey, man, there's a very good possibility they continue. They seem like they draft a tight end every damn year, and most years 2 tight ends. So I don't think it's crazy. But, Jimbo, do you think getting rid of Mark Andrews, like, we just feel like we got a lot of, like, enough weapons to withstand, like, if one of them got hurt? I don't want to go back down the road of having less.
No, I'm with you. But so is what you're saying, then you're seeing an extension?
I'm seeing an extension, Jimbo.
Interesting.
And that's how they get that cap number down.
Nothing about what Eric said today. You said it, Glenn. I want you to talk about this. Weren't you concerned about the way he talked about Mark in comparison to some other guys?
Well, okay, yes, I was concerned. But I also think that a lot of that is bargaining. Like, if he went out and said, man, we need Mark next year. We need him. He's too important to our offense. He's a cog. Then when he goes to the negotiating table and is ready to do this extension, I don't know if he has as much hand if he gives up all that. But if he comes now, if he says what he said today, which was very non-committal, very complimentary, but not nearly as committal as some of the other comments that we're going to talk about here shortly, then he loses some of his bargaining power. So I think that was, I don't know, maybe I'm just being optimistic because I don't want Mark Andrews' time to be just looked at as like a choke artist, a guy who can't get it done in the biggest moments. So maybe I'm looking at it with some purple glasses, and that's possible. But I think he was holding some bargaining chips on that one.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a fair take. But I think this year is it, my man. I think this is the swan song.
Okay. But how can they just the thing? I agree. Like, I don't think it's crazy to say that, but how do they just deal with this monster cap hit? Like, they're just okay with it? I guess they just eat it?
They can still go to Marlin. They can still do some other things, right? Like, but I think every year they're I'm trying to think. I know that there's another scenario where we did this and we took the hit in 1 year. Gosh, dang it. My mind is failing me. But we've been in these situations before where, like, you just have to know where you're taking hits, where you have flexibility. You're choosing to extend Marlin. And you're choosing for more years with that partnership because you're not with Mark. It's a short-term thing, right? Because this is the thing, Glenn. I wholeheartedly believe if they extend Mark, you can say bye-bye to Likely.
Mm,
Like
that's a
you
good
got,
point.
you know what I'm saying? To me, it's one or the other. If you're talking
Well, who
after
is
the
it, one or
season,
the other for 1 year? Who you got?
1 year, of course, I'm taking Mark.
Okay.
But if we're talking the next 3-4 years,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. That's still a good question.
Because see, I don't know if we've seen.
Enough. Like Mark came on the scene and was it.
Yeah. Yeah, getting all those targets, man. It's like part
Uh,
of me wants to see Likely get like get those types of targets, man. What can he
yeah.
do with the ball in his hands? Yeah, this is a tough situation.
Because
Not
it
with
also
him.
exposes you positively and negatively.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, okay, Likely gets those targets, and then with that extra target share, he gets a lot more attention. And then, like I said, I mean, look, I keep saying it. What if he gets banged up? Now you're down to you don't have Likely, you don't have Andrews, so now you got Charlie Kohler as your number one tight end.
Mm.
I don't want that.
You know,
I mean,
a
I like
big.
Charlie
What did he
Kohler.
say? He's a fat white guy screaming
Yeah,
down the middle of the field.
I'm a fan of Charlie Kohler. Seems like a great guy I'd like to have a beer with for sure, but I don't know if I want him as my number one tight end. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn when it comes to this, but let me see. Mark Andrews cut scenario. Here we go. All right. So DK's got some numbers for us. It seems like a lot of this makes a lot of sense to do post one release, which is not very fair to Mark Andrews. But basically, if they release him after June 1st, they'll have 5.9 in dead cap this year, but they'll get 11 million in savings and they'll have no dead cap next season. Whereas if they release him before June the 1st, then they'll have 5.9 in savings, 11 million in savings, but they will have a dead cap of 9. Oh my god! Hold on, I can't. DK, I'm too stupid to understand this. Okay,
Did you put this in the text?
Yeah, he sent it. Help me out.
Okay,
Jimmy.
I'll do my very best. So pre June 1st. So we'd save 7 million today. Pre June 1st.
Okay.
Post June 1st, we'd save 11 million.
Okay.
Now, a trade pre June 1st, we would still the scenario would be the
Get our
same
full savings.
pre or post June 1st from a trade perspective.
Okay.
That's the way that I understand that as far as we get the 11 million in savings. So really the only scenario in which we don't is if we release them early enough to hit free agency.
Man. And then the question is, are they going to I mean, I guess the big thing is we talked about, like, we were kind of bagging on the Steelers, or at least I was, about because they benched Fields so quickly, they never even got to see what they had in them. So now they're still in the same position of what do we have in them? And if they keep Andrews for one more year, will we be in that same scenario with Likely next year where we really won't know if he's a true number one if we keep Andrews around next year? Because like Adam 78 saying, he's going to want number one tight end money next year. And if so, man, that's a tough one, man. I'm glad I'm not Eric DeCosta, because I think what the smart thing to do is you get rid of Andrews now, you give Likely the keys to the Jeep and see what the guy's got. That way, you know for sure if you can give him number one tight end money next year. But there's a risk with that. Now you're getting rid of one of your best weapons, the safety blanket for your quarterback, and probably, I mean, where would you rank him in targets right now? Like, where would you put him? Above Zay, above Bate? Like, where would you rank Andrews right now in importance as far as targets?
To Lamar Jackson, I think he's still number one.
So you're getting rid of number one?
I know that Zay, Zay is very trusted, and Bateman has made some big but Mark is this guy, right?
That's what it feels like when he's on the field. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's why this is such a tough situation.
Just book it. I already told you what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Last hurrah. I think that's the best. That's probably the best way. And then you just bank on the fact that Likely is ready next year to be the quarterback. I mean, to be the number one.
Because at some point you have to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or you have to give an aging guy another bag.
Now, if somebody comes calling with a 3rd round pick, are you doing it?
Of course. That won't happen.
Okay. All right.
Not because he's not worth it. I just think it's rich. I think it's rich.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Well, that's probably the one I'm most interested. That and Stanley are the ones I'm like, oh man, what are they going to do with these guys? But one thing we don't have to worry about, Jimbo, and both John Harbaugh and really Eric DeCosta made it incredibly clear that there will be no issues making sure that oh my God, Derrick Henry retires in Baltimore. He is going absolutely nowhere. They spoke incredibly highly of him, both on and off the field. His leadership, his work ethic, everything in between. He ain't going anywhere, and I don't think he'll ever play another snap in a different uniform, Jimbo.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, they love everything about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's one of those guys. There's a few of them. I think I talked about this before. Chubb hurt when they took Chubb, the Browns, because I feel like he's a Raven now. His career hasn't, as far as injury, it's been really unfortunate because he's such a talented guy. Derrick Henry's another one of those guys just born to be a Raven.
Yep.
That's what I love so much about Gus Edwards when he popped on the scene, because you were like, okay, this kid was born to play Raven football, right? And there's other guys just like that. So yeah, Derrick Henry's not going anywhere. He don't go anywhere. He gets it. He's not stupid. He knows the value of having number 8 under center to his life and his longevity in the NFL. So yeah, I think they feel very confident in whatever they got to do there to potentially create some additional cap space and lower his hit as well.
Yeah. He's going absolutely nowhere. He gets his wish. He stays in Baltimore more. Also, Eric DeCosta mentioned, he's talked about in the past Lamar's input on, decisions at the top for this franchise, both in the draft, free agency, coaching staff, all that. But it feels like every year his opinion, it only gets bigger. Eric DeCosta called Lamar Jackson a stakeholder, called him a partner in this franchise, and certainly any quarterback making 30-something% of your total cap space, that guy is going to be valuable. He's going to have say. But when I love that Eric called him, should have been 3-time MVP, made it very clear who he was voting for MVP. I like that he's getting a voice. He said he watches, he keeps an eye on the talent in the draft. I love it, man. I mean, this guy, he's our franchise, and I love that his role and his opinion, it only continues to grow as he matures. He's an 8-year vet now, Jimbo. Holy smokes.
Crazy, man. No, but you're right. I'm glad that Lamar is continuing to progress as a leader. Eric called him a stakeholder, which is really cool. Not everybody gets that opportunity, but certainly Lamar has earned it and has earned it deservedly so. Yeah, man, I'm glad we're in the position we're in. No complaints from me. You touched on it earlier. You think we use any draft capital on a backup quarterback?
That is a good point. I think they might at the very tail end of the draft, or potentially and probably more likely as an undrafted guy, because they do have Leary. But I'm okay with them going into. Actually, am I? Ooh, that's a good one. Am I okay with them going in? Because I don't think they need a vet anymore. Like, I don't think it's that important to have a vet, because Lamar's a vet now. He's done pretty much everything you can do and probably seen pretty much everything you can see. But I do think it's still important to have a guy in case Lamar were to go down for a 3 to 4 week stretch. They could at least come in and go 2-2, 1-2. Just don't completely ruin the season for us. If the quarterback were to miss a few games, I don't think Leary's the guy like Killa Cam says. I'm not so sure. So yeah, I'd be okay with them kicking the tires, but I think it's more likely they fill that role as a veteran, like a guy who's been in the league.
Yeah, that's fair. It'll be interesting to see. I think that there's going to be some decent names out there. We need an upgrade from Josh.
Yeah. No, I'm done with Josh. I think Josh had probably a little bit too long career. Good job, Josh.
Hey, make your money, dude.
Yeah, he made the most of what he had. And I think he'll be coaching high school next year.
Yeah, might end up in the league one day coaching.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked.
No,
very
absolutely.
well liked, very well respected.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from you from this thing, Glenn?
Let's see here.
Anything we're missing?
I don't. It's pretty hard to imagine, Jimbo. They have 11 draft picks, Jimbo. 11? That's a lot of freaking picks.
A lot of things are going to happen, man.
I find it hard to believe that 11 new players could make this roster, but I guess they It just makes me think there could be some draft day moving. I think, DK saying moving
Right.
up. I wouldn't be shocked though. 11 picks? Like, that's a lot of picks they would have to make this team. And this is a really talented roster. So don't be surprised if we see some draft day action. But look, guys, don't forget Thursday, the combine action happens on the field. On-field workouts begin. I believe it's linebackers are the first to hit the field.
They ain't take any time off. They ain't big time in the linebackers.
Hell no. They're ready to hit somebody. They're ready to run through a wall. And look, linebackers a position I think the Ravens should absolutely address. I think as much as Pat Queen missed the Ravens at times, I think the Ravens missed Pat Queen at times. I think that's fair to say that him and Roquan were a great match. And while the vets filled in admirably, I think we could use some youthful, maybe some more youth to the position. And I don't know if Simpson's the guy, but make sure you guys are watching. But of course, Thursday we'll also be back. I don't know if we'll publish on Thursday. We'll certainly be doing some recording.
Yeah, for sure.
But make sure you guys hit the notification bell to keep you up to date on all the Ravens news. But I think that's it for us tonight, right, Jimbo?
Yeah, man. Talk to you soon.
See you.
Ah!